What's up, guys? Magical Libra here today, and we are back with a deck profile for Trickstars. So, what really drew me back into Yu-Gi-Oh! Because, as you may have known, for those of you who are still subscribed, and those of you who are just now looking at my channel, I took a break from Yu-Gi-Oh! For about, say, a little over a year. But this deck is what did it for me. This deck is what drew me back into Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it really reminded me of the fun side of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I quit mainly because of the competitive scene and I couldn't really play Dark Magician anymore. And you still kind of can't, but you still can play Dark Magician. But I actually wanted to step out and play other decks, such as Trickstars. So what really drew me back into this was how fun Trickstars are. The fact, yes, they burn you, and it's a burn deck. And going against a burn deck isn't really all that great unless you can beat it, in which case it's great. So it gives you that race against the clock type of vibe whenever you are going up against this deck. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get on into the deck profile. I did update it and make sure that it was ready for this September 2nd ban list that just dropped a few days ago, because currently it is September 4th, I do believe. So whenever you're seeing this, it might be a couple days later, who knows. But we got some really cool Trickstar tokens that we can special summon out with some of our special effects. So starting off, because two of our Trickstar monsters, Trickstar Bloom and Trickstar Lysis, I call it Lysis, are very specific to level-based Trickstar monsters. So with that being said, we are going to be putting our levels from lowest to highest on the first part of this video. So bear with me on that. But starting off, we have one of our main normal summons, which is Trickstar Nightshade, that has a very special ability that if it is sent to the grave as link material for the link summon of a Trickstar monster, you can special summon this card, which is not once per turn. So if you can get out multiple Nightshade, which we don't really do that in this deck, but if you want to change out the deck profile, maybe double summon, I don't know, you could do her effect multiple times. And for the most part, most of the Trickstar monsters are not really once per turn, except for, I think, one of them, at least in this deck. So if you can get out multiple of them, you can keep using multiple of their effects because they are not once per turn. So yes, when you link it off, you can bring it right back. But if it were to leave the field, it would be banished. So keep that in mind. So this is our only level 1 starter in the deck. We actually do not play Trickstar Lilybell. I was thinking of doing that, but that would require us to dedicate a 4th normal summon in the deck. Technically, we play 6, so that would require us to play 7 normal summons in the deck. And I'd rather not be bricked on a whole bunch of normal summons. For our next Trickstar monster, we have Trickstar Lysis. This has got to be my favorite of the Trickstar monsters in the main deck, simply because she has a quick effect. You can reveal her in your hand and target a Trickstar monster that you control, except for a Trickstar Lysis. Special summon this Lysis from your hand and return that other Trickstar monster back to your hand. That is not once per turn, and I constantly use that effect, and I abuse it and use it. But my favorite part about her effect is that she has a continuous floodgate effect that says each time a card is added to your opponent's hand, inflict 200 damage to them for each card. That's right. They want to do Pot of Greed? That's fine. You don't just get to inflict them 200. No, you drew 2 cards. That means you take 400. So in this deck, we do make our opponent draw cards a bunch of times, so we get to inflict them damage. Probably one of my favorite things with this deck is I'll burn my opponent all the way down to 2 or 100 life points. I'll leave Lysis on the field and end my turn. My opponent has to draw for turn, and they lose. So that's probably one of my favorite things to do with this deck is I burned you, but I'm tired of burning you. I'm going to let you burn yourself. So that's one of my favorite things and why I really love her so much. Next off, we're going to move to our second normal summon of the deck, which is our Trickstar Candina, which is our level 4s. So, by the way, I wanted to mention that Trickstar Nightshade is our level 1 and can only be used for our Trickstar Blooms. Also, our tokens can be used for our Blooms as well. And our Trickstar Lysis can only be used for our Trickstar Nabiru, which is 2 level 3 or lower Trickstar monsters. Which also, the tokens can be used for those as well. Unfortunately, our Candinas and our other Trickstar monsters we are going to show you cannot be used for Trickstar Bloom or Nabiru, so make sure to remember that. Alright, so again, we're going to go into our Trickstar Candinas. This is our other normal summon of the deck that says when it is normal summoned, you can add a Trickstar card from your deck to your hand. Now, you don't really normal summon more than once in this deck, and that is fine. But if you're able to get off this card and normal summon it a bunch of times, go for it. But in this profile, we don't normal summon more than once. So you can add any Trickstar card that means monster, spell, or trap from your deck to your hand to further extend your combos and plays so you can make your opponent burn with more Trickstar effects. It also has a nice continuous floodgate effect like Trickstar Lysis that says each time your opponent activates a spell or trap card, inflict 200 damage to them immediately after it resolves. So that's a pretty nice effect. I sometimes don't leave her on the field, but if I have her and I want to leave Lysis and Candina on the field, then I will. That way I can just kind of burn my opponent, but I really want to leave our Trickstar Light stage on the field so that way they get that multiple burn. For our last Trickstar monsters, we do play 2 more special summon extenders, which is going to be our Trickstar Corban, the only level 5 Trickstar monster in the deck, and I believe in the whole archetype actually. So pretty much this special card is kind of like an honest and a free special summon as well. Basically, if you control no monsters or all the monsters you control are Trickstar monsters, which generally they are, but sometimes in this deck they are not, but generally they are, you're allowed to special summon this card from your hand. But its honest effect is during the damage step, when your Trickstar monster battles an opponent's monster, that means you can instigate that, or your opponent can attack you, doesn't matter. Quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the grave, and that monster you control gains attack equal to its original attack until the end of this turn, which is actually pretty good. But you do have to keep somewhat of a mind on this, is that Trickstar Corban says you can only use 1 Trickstar Corban effect per turn and only once that turn. So you can either special summon her and keep her in your hand for when your opponent attacks you, but if you want to keep her in your hand and you attack, you cannot special summon her because you can only do 1 effect per turn. So keep that in mind. Moving on to our Trickstar spells, we're going to go Trickstar Festival. Now, the most important thing about this card is that, yes, it special summons you 2 Trickstar tokens, which is really nice to set up for quick link plays, but it locks you into Trickstar monsters. So make sure to remember that. Now, the thing about this card is that it has a special effect, kind of like Return of the Dragon Lords, is that if your Trickstar monster or monsters would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can activate this card in your grave and banish it instead. So that's pretty cool. Now, remember, you can only activate 1 Trickstar Festival per turn. I wished that wasn't there. That way we could continue special summoning a bunch, but sadly it is. So we found a way to play around it. Moving on to our field spells, the best field spell in the deck is Trickstar Light Stage. It is not once per turn. You can keep activating this card over and over and over just to keep searching any Trickstar monster you want. So speaking of that, its first effect is when it's activated, you can add a Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand. So that is really good to help extend for more plays. It also has a once per turn, it's a soft once per turn effect, that you can target one set card in your opponent's spell and trap zone. While this card is in the field zone, that set card cannot be activated until the end phase, and your opponent must activate it during the end phase, or else send it to the grave. The only time your opponent can activate that card are 2 times. When you activate this card and target that set card, or during the end phase. So just remember that, just in case you're in person and then go, oh, I'm going to chain to it. No, you can't. Well, actually, yes, you can. So make sure to remember that. But my favorite thing about this card is its floodgate effect, is that each time a Trickstar monster you control inflicts battle or effect damage to your opponent, inflict 200 damage to them. So, yes, my Trickstar monsters are going to burn you, but just in case I'm not burning you enough, I will attack you with my Candina for 1600, whatever it is, and then burn you for another 200, almost basically close to 2000, just like that. So that is pretty cool to know. Our other Trickstar field spell is going to be our Trickstar Live Stage. So we're only playing 2 copies of this. Basically, this is kind of like our Trickstar Festival. It locks you into Trickstar monsters. So make sure to remember that when you play this card. It has a couple of special cool effects. So basically, when this card's activated, you're allowed to add 1 Trickstar monster from your grave to your hand. So that is pretty cool. And I do believe, I'm going to make sure I read this so I don't inform you correctly. You can only use each of the following effects of Live Stage once per turn. Okay, so yes, you can activate multiples of Live Stage to keep adding Trickstar monsters from your grave to your hand. That is not once per turn. But the following effects are once per turn for the Live Stage name, so make sure to remember that. I had to get that confused because there's a reason why I played it too. I mainly am playing Light Stage. I hardly ever play Live Stage. Might even just bump this down to 1. But basically, yes, you're only allowed to use the following effects of Live Stage once per turn. And also, you cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate these following effects, except for Trickstar monsters, even if this card leaves the field. So make sure to remember that. The first effect is, if you control a Trickstar Link monster, you can special summon 1 Trickstar token, and it specifically lists Fairy, Light, level 1 attack and defense 0. Funny enough, the second effect lets you special summon a Trickstar token, haha, but the funny thing I want to point out is it doesn't mention the stats of that token. Maybe because they knew they listed it in the first effect, but it would have just been nice to know that you listed it in the second effect too. I just wanted to point that out. But the second effect is, if your opponent controls a card in their spell and trap zone, you can special summon a Trickstar token. So each of those are hard once per turn, but the first effect for adding a Trickstar monster to grave is soft once per turn. So you can just keep activating more Live Stage. To round up our field spell stuff, we are going to be playing 1 Terraforming. So that way we have 3 copies of Live Stage or 4 copies of Light Stage. Rounding off our Trickstar cards, we do play 1 Trickstar Magical Laurel. This is kind of like Premature Burial. It is an equipped spell for Trickstars. You can activate this card by targeting a Trickstar monster in your grave, special summon it, and equip it with this card. Like Premature Burial, when this card leaves the field, destroy that monster. But this has an additional effect. Once per turn, if the equipped monster inflicts battle or effect damage to your opponent, you can special summon 1 Trickstar monster from your hand. You can only activate 1 Magical Laurel per turn. So make sure to remember that when playing this. I only play 1 for that reason. But I only really need 1. I don't need to keep recurring cards back from my grave. I may bump it up to 2 in the future by bumping Live Stage down to 1. I could play 2 Laurel. But it's all up to you and how you want to play the deck. But one of my favorite combos with Laurel is, let me come here right quick, and either take Candina or Lysis and keep them on the field so they can burn, or I'll take Trickstar Lysis, because when she is special summoned, she immediately burns. So I bring her back from the grave with Lorel to burn you, and then I get to extend and special summon more Trickstar monsters from my hand. For the last Trickstar cards in the main deck, we play 3 Trickstar Reincarnation. I was sleeping on this card because I didn't really fully recognize how good this card is in the Trickstar deck versus playing this card outside of its archetype. Because I mainly really looked at it as, yes, it's a trap, you set it, you can't really activate it from your hand, it's a trap, and those are slow, but this deck kind of is okay with this. Basically, this trap is really good against your opponent because it banishes your opponent's entire hand, and if you do that, then they draw the same number of cards that were banished. So leaving Lysis on the field, you can just immediately, if you're going first, set Trickstar Reincarnation during draw phase, banish 6, make them draw 6, and then burn them for 200 times 6, so which is actually pretty cool. But I was sleeping on it because of its second effect, which none of the other decks can use because they don't play Trickstars. And I really didn't read it because we're all Yu-Gi-Oh players and none of us read. So the second effect of it is a trap, so it works as a quick effect in the grave. You can banish this card from your grave at any point in the duel, and then target one Trickstar monster in your grave. Special summon it. So it allows for recursion and to go into basically our turn 2, our second turn, third turn, whatever, to continue and go into more burn strategies. Moving on, that is going to be all of the Trickstar cards in the main deck. Now we are going to move on to our support cards. So our honorary Trickstar cards are going to be Dark Room of Nightmare. So this is a continuous spell that is really old and very useful. Pretty much all of our cards in our Trickstar cards, they say burn your opponent for 200. Well, Dark Room of Nightmare makes that become 500. Pretty much each time damage, except for battle damage, is inflicted to your opponent's life points, inflict 300 points of damage to your opponent's life points. This card's effect is not applied to the effect of Dark Room of Nightmare. So, obviously, for reasons, you can't go Chain Link 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and keep going back. But with stuff like Lysis burning you for 200, you then get to burn them for 300. And then your Light Stage field spell burns them for another 200, and then Nightmare will also activate again and burn them for another 300. So that's 2, 4, and then you got 6. Yeah, that's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 1,000 damage just on Nightmare, Lysis, and Light Stage. So that makes burning them a lot quicker. This is my spicy. I'm just gonna move this along because I've only got the one card I have right here. This is my spicy tech card in the build. I was playing 3 of this and 1 Trickstar Reincarnation, but obviously I've changed it. So I'm only playing 1 of this. I may side it out. I may go for Call by the Grave. I don't know. But I wanted to kind of continue to burn my opponent. And that is going to be our one other trap card, which is Secret Barrel, which is also another really old card. But it says inflict damage to your opponent equal to the total number of cards on your opponent's side of the field and in your opponent's hand times 200. So 200 is our gimmick, and this card does the most damage I have seen. Any of the other burn cards that can easily be thrown in this deck, just simply because it stacks up burn really fast. Because your opponent is always playing combo and getting more cards out than what they started with. So you just kind of wait, go Secret Barrel, burn them for 14, 1800, and then there you go. And then, you've got maybe Dark Room of Nightmare on the field, burn them for a little bit more, and just burn your opponent to death. Smother them with damage, all right? But if you want, you can just take this card out and play Call by the Grave. But that was just my one tech card I wanted to keep in the deck. Now we are going to move on to the hand traps, and we are going to start off with the most important MVP of the day. This is Mahama, the Fairy Dragon, best hand trap. It's basically kind of like Honest, but backwards. So basically when you take battle damage, it's not once per turn. Quick effect. You can, I don't want to say reveal it. Let me read it here. During your opponent's turn, when either player takes battle damage, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand and apply one of these effects. One, which is gain life points equal to that battle damage, which you never ever do. Or two, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that battle damage. Along with another card that we play in this list, definitely... It can definitely, you could do the gain life points, but you always want to do inflict damage and burn them, so that way you can win as fast as possible. Also, I do want to mention it is level 5, so if you wanted to do a rank 5 Xyz play, you could with your Trickstar Corban and this card, but that's a stretch. I didn't want to go for that, so I didn't. But it is a 25 beater, so you always put it in defense for the wall protection and burn your opponent. What's really funny is that a lot of the times in testing, I'll put this in defense, and my opponent will take maybe 1-2 turns to get a monster out with stronger than 2,500 attack, which is really funny because I haven't faced against Snake Eyes with this deck. I have not. But the other decks I've faced against, they really struggle getting over 2,500. I'm just like, I really expect this card not to stay on the field for this long. How is it staying on the field for this long? You know, so that's a really cute thing I noticed about this. Secondly, we are going to be playing, because this is really one of the other MVPs of the deck, mainly because of the European Nationals, and that is going to be our Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. I do want to get the alt art version of this where it has her black hood, because you know she's like a Catholic sister, a nun. But basically, this card is, you know, another really good hand trap. Is that if your opponent special summons a monster, quick effect, or no, during the turn except the end phase, quick effect, you can discard this card and apply this effect. You can only activate one Ghost Sister per turn, and that's each time your opponent specials a monster or an effect monster during the main phase or the battle phase, so it works very good against Tempai. You gain life points equal to that monster's attack, and if you did not gain life points by this effect, your life points are halved. So I saw Tempai in the European Nationals just drop this going turn 1, like during draw phase, and the opponent just passed, and his life points got halved, but it didn't matter because he's Tempai, so he just attack. But for this deck, we don't really do that, so make sure to wait for them to activate a card that special summons and then chain Dogwood, so that way you at least get some life points off of it. And if they want to go full combo, then you'll get up a lot of life points. I've gotten up to maybe, I think, 37,000 life points one time, so yeah. Moving on, we have our Nabiru. This does get in our way sometimes, but the thing about this card is that it's mainly just to get in our opponent's way, make them start over and recombo. Also, we have play cards like in our extra deck, Relinquished Anima, where we can just take control of the token, and there you go. Lastly, was thinking about changing this up, but I'm just going to keep it for now until I get, I think I am just going to keep it for now. I contemplated, but I'm going to go ahead. This is going to be Ghost Mourner and Moonlight Chill. What this card is basically Effect Veiler on crack with downside. So basically this is a on summon or not at all activation effect, where when your opponent, or if your opponent specials a monster, you activate it now or you don't. and that is to target that special summoned monster, negate its effects, and if it would leave the field, your opponent takes damage equal to its attack. So it's another burn card, but it's also an effect veiler. So it kind of works both ways, but you got to time it just right. Don't ever really target their 2000 attack or stronger monsters because they generally just don't leave the field. They stay there because they're going to attack you with that. But target their weaker monsters like 15, maybe 1900, something weak like that. You get to burn them for a little bit of damage, and you know that card isn't going to stay on the field for very long. All right, so that is going to be it for the main deck. That is a 40-card main deck with 1, 2, 3, 4 times 3. That's going to be 3, 6, 9, 12 hand traps in the main deck. Now we're going to move on into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we play 3 Trickstar Bloom until we get our new Trickstar support, in which case we will be updating this deck again. So look out for that on the channel. So pretty much Trickstar Bloom's special effect, or let me just start over with how you make her. You need 1 level 2 or lower Trickstar monster, which is going to be your Trickstar Nightshade. Her on-summon effect is if she's link summoned, you can make your opponent draw a card. So when you activate that, quick effect Lysis, return Bloom back to hand, summon Lysis, and then Bloom still resolves, and their opponent draws a card. Lysis deals them 200. Pretty neat tip there. She also has another effect that if a face-up Trickstar monster this card points to, so it points straight down, were to be destroyed by battle or card effect, inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each card in their hand. So that's also a really cool effect. But you can only use that effect that burns of Trickstar Bloom once per turn. So make sure to remember that. Next up, we play my favorite Link monster in this entire deck. The thing we go when going first, we put Devardis on the field past turn, along with other cards, is that this card requires 2 level 3 or lower Trickstar monsters. So our Nightshade, our tokens, and our Lysis to make this card. You can only control 1 Trickstar Devardis, so make sure to remember that. If this card is special summoned, inflict 200 damage to your opponent. If your opponent normal or special summons a monster, inflict 200 damage to your opponent. So that nice floodgate effect that every time they normal and special, burn, burn, burn. So make sure to remember that, and that is why this is my favorite card. Next up, we only play with 1 Trickstar Holy Angel. Pretty much you only really need 1 of this card. You don't need more than 1. This requires 2 Trickstar monsters to make it. Each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special to a zone it points to, so left and right. Bottom left, bottom right, my bad. You get to inflict 200 damage to your opponent. And also, it also says Trickstar monsters this card points to cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, so make sure to remember that as well. If your opponent takes damage by a Trickstar monster's effect, that includes itself, this card gains attack equal to the damage they took until the end of this turn. So every time you special a monster to this zone, it gains 200 and it burns you for 200. So it's a nice little combo. If you don't have access to Devardis or your Bloom or Lysis, you could just go into Trickstar Holy Angel, go into the tokens, keep special summoning, burn, 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 burn. This is more of a on your turn 2 or your 3rd turn type of play, and that's why we only play with 1 of her. Also, she has 2k attack, so that's also really good. Moving on, we have our Link 3. We have Trickstar Foxglove Witch. You only need 1 of her. Of course, requires 2 or more fairy monsters, and all of our monsters are fairies for the most part. Our extra deck gets a little bit different, but most of our main deck is fairies. When she is special summoned, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each card they control. So again, another great target for Trickstar Laurel equip spell. Just bring it back and inflict 200 damage for each card they control. If it's link summoned, if this link summon card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special a link 2 or lower Trickstar monster from your extra deck, and then inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each card they control. So also more damage, but that also means you can bring out your second Trickstar Lysis after you've already pulled out your first one. This is more of a going your turn 2, turn 3 type of play, same as Holly Angel. Along with the next card that we play is our Link 4. Our Trickstar Bella Madonna is also more of a turn 3 play. We don't really bring this out on our second turn. We more bring this on our third turn if there is a third turn. But it requires 2 or more Trickstar monsters. Link 4 with 2800 attack. And I want to remind you of its arrows. Its arrows points directly up, directly down, to the right, and the bottom left. So when this card is link summoned, when this link summon card points to no monsters, it is unaffected by other cards' activated effects. If this card points to no monsters, that's why the arrows are important, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each Trickstar monster in your grave with a different name. So we do play quite a number of different Trickstar monsters with different names, but not more than, I would say, 2,000, maybe 1,500 damage at most, 1,600 damage. She also has, you can only use this effect of Trickstar Bella Madonna once per turn. Now, more than likely, this card won't survive after you've summoned it and pass turn, but if it does, just remember, don't summon anything yet. Activate her effect again to burn again, and then you can start summoning and doing stuff. Just make sure to remember that, just in case you go and you keep her on the field somehow. That is going to be all of our Trickstar monsters in the extra deck. Now we are going to be moving on to the other Trickstar, or the other extra deck monsters. So like I revealed earlier to you, we have one Relinquished Enema to take control of the token or our opponent's monster. We have one IP Masquerena to go into our SP. Now, please forgive me for no proxy, but this is SP Little Knight. So SP from IP, you get to banish a card on summon and banish itself and your opponent's card basically every turn. So that's also really good. We also have Nightmare Phoenix to pop spells and traps, Nightmare Unicorn to return pesky monsters, and we also have our Xyz monsters, which are Superstar Slayer Type 1 Sky Crisis. Basically, this is a really cool card that you can use any of your monsters with the highest attack. If your opponent specialed 2 or more monsters from the extra deck this turn or last turn, then use your monster with the highest attack, your choice if tied, and Xyz summon this card using that monster as material. Monsters with 3,000 or more attack cannot activate their effects, so it's kind of like a skill drain for strong monsters. Again, it's got only 2,900 attack and defense, so pretty good right there. Then you could probably just put this in defense on summon, and then on next turn, that's when you're going to bring out this card. But its other effect is once per turn, quick effect. You can detach, my bad, just once per turn, not a quick effect. You can detach one material from this card and return a monster on the field to the hand. So, like Unicorn, get rid of those pesky monsters. And I was playing Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess. That's what this face down card was. But because of the ban list, I had to change it real quick. And so I just decided to throw in Divine Arsenal, AA Zeus, Sky Thunder. Basically to just, on our next turn, if Sky Crisis is still there, attack, Zeus, wipe. And there you go. That is going to be it for our extra deck. Now we are going to move on into the side deck for those of you who are wondering what you should play in the side deck for this. Of course, the side deck is completely dependent on your locals, but I wanted to go 3 Droll and Lockbird because it does affect most of the decks in the meta. It is a good option. Lava Golem, I wanted a kaiju that wasn't Nabiru, And Lava Golem just seemed to fit that target simply because it burns our opponent. And it also works well with our relinquished anima. So we could just put it in the zone over here. It burns them. Our turn. Summon anima. Take control of it. Our anima is now 3,000. It just works. Just works, guys. Book of Moon to get rid of those pesky monsters that you don't really want their effects to resolve on field. So you Book of Moon them, and there you go. Then you could probably Lava Golem them too as well if you wanted to. Just remember Book of Moon if their monster is face down, and then you activate Nabiru. Nabiru does not work on face down monsters, so remember that. For the traps, we have evenly matched. Just, you know, if we're going second and we know we're going second, we can just side out some of our other cards and, you know, evenly match, get rid of our opponent's board. There you go. And the last card is my spicy card in the build. This is for those trap-based decks. So, Royal Decree, because I checked the ban list. This thing's at 3. It's been a while. I remember it being at 1 at one point, but yeah, it's at 3. So yeah, I'm gonna keep it in there for those trap-based decks. But that is gonna be it for the main deck, extra deck, and the side deck, guys. I hope you liked the video. If you want test hands, I'll make sure to upload a video of that later. But if you really liked the video, make sure to leave a like, comment down below what was your favorite part, favorite card, favorite reason for playing a certain card, and make sure to subscribe. And as always, I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.